All right. I think we're running. Yes, we're up and running. So I'm Toni Daniels, and I'm here with Jason Twombly, and otherwise known as Jay. And I am here with Jay today because Jay is one of our Luke 10 trainers, and we have had the privilege of spending a lot of hours together this year. I will say, at least I've had the privilege of spending hours with you this year as we have, as you've been training as a Luke 10 trainer, because up until last year, well, we had four other trainers with Luke 10 that I've also had the privilege of spending lots of time with training them. And then we've had a few transition off of that. And so we were bringing a few on last year and you were one of those. So it's been a pleasure. And I've invited you here today because we normally meet at this time to talk about all things training and as far as your training world goes. But today in particular, I thought this would be fun if Jay and I could just riff a little and share with the whole world the world of a Luke 10 trainer. What's that like? What's it about? Why do we do what we do? What do we do? And all that good stuff. So that's why we're here. But we always start with a check-in. So, hi, do you want to check in? And then maybe, actually, do we want to check in first or you just introduce yourself a little bit? Have we interviewed you yet?
I was on for general curiosity, so I think the masses may know who I am now.
Okay, so you were. Oh, that's right. I remember. Matt and I were right there with you while you were being interviewed.
Very nice. That was fun.
Could you see us down there in the backstage?
Yeah, it felt good to see you there. Yeah,
but I'm so glad we were like supportive. I wanted you to see that my husband was there too. Anyway, so yes, for all of you out there, we can see who's backstage. You can't see them, but we can see them. And so it's like encouraging, like when you're on a stage performing, you can see people. It's super fun. Yeah. So go ahead and introduce yourself briefly, and then we'll check in.
Yeah. I am Jason Michael Twombly, tuning in from upstate New York. And yes, I am a Luke 10 trainer, and I love it. I love to train the people that the Lord sends. These are primo people from all over the world. And it is joy fueled in every way, and seeing the kingdom ripple into these different businesses, house churches, families, and becoming vibrant families for Jesus. Just to have a piece of that in the training world really excites me, and I want to do more of it. Book my calendar, find me. There's other really great trainers, and I really enjoy this space. It's my sweet spot, and I love to train with Luke 10. So it's a privilege to talk about it, riff with you. I love our Friday calls, and sometimes it gets too excited and too giddy. So we'll quiet ourselves when we need to do with our shalom exercises. But I'm really happy to be here with you.
I love it. I tell Jay, this is my last meeting usually of the week, and I save it for the best for last because it doesn't drain me. It gives me energy. Not that I don't want to say any of my meetings drain me, but you know what I mean. It's always super fun, super exciting. We get a lot done. We move and shake. We feel like we're changing the world by the time we're done. So it's a good note to end on.
Yes.
Thank you. So would you like to go ahead and check in, or was that kind of your check-in?
I can do a check-in. Yeah, I am checking in today in a bit of flux because I have we're moving to Greenville, South Carolina. So there's a long list of things that have to be done. I think 30 days left, 31 days in this house.
What?
And so, there's just that middle life moving situation. So there's all that going on. Checking in, wondering, the Lord's been training me in wonder for this year, wondering how I'm going to finance this month, because Pay It Forward is turbulent this month and last month. So the plane of how we're funding the revolution is an experiment, as we're all on this experiment. And I'm the guy to talk about it. And there's some turbulence. And I can use a flight attendant coming down and offering me an item. So it's that kind of day, that kind of a month. Lord Jesus, take the wheel. There's some turbulence, and I want to stay in the plane.
If you're a 2 on the Enneagram out there right now, and you love to deliver beverages as a flight attendant, in whatever way God's prompting you right now, Jay could use a beverage or anything you have to offer.
Yeah, so there are some real practical challenges there. So just saying it feels good, and then feeling a lot of creative energy to create courses that I just have been writing stuff down just yesterday, rolling stuff out in some place. So other than that, I'm delighted to be here to be with you and to make it a wonderful Friday. So that's me. I'm on.
Thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was yesterday in the finance circle meeting when we were facing the fact that we're $7,000 short to pay our staff this month. We were listening to Jesus about that. And I just sensed that I sensed God say, my heart, God, the impression was in order to risk take the way the people of God, the way my people should risk take, you have to have the skill of finding comfort in me, letting me comfort you. And, you know, as you're sharing this whole transition you're in and finance and all that, I know you're, and from your story just the other day, you have been deeply trained in getting comfort from Jesus.
Right.
And there's no way we could live this crazy life, honestly, without that. And so many people go, I would never do what we all do. Like, never. Like, security is like my baby. Like, I need security. Well, being a Luke 10 trainer is definitely not about security, is it? I don't know. Anyway, for what it's worth.
It's a reminder too. The book that I'm supposed to be writing is called Jesus Comforts. A series of writings from that space where I needed him to comfort me in this last decade. And so that will be birthed in due time. So Jesus Comforts is actually part of my DNA. So thanks for just reminding me to get back on that. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. I need that book. I would love that book. Please.
You got it.
Please. Yeah. May it be so. If anyone wants to fund the writing of that book, I'm terrible. I'm shameless, aren't I? Jay, you're on our website, right? So we have a Luke 10 website, and on our website, we have a section for our listed facilitators. Those people who have trained with us for hundreds of hours, some of them, and we just say, yes, this person has our DNA through and through, no matter what they're doing in the world. And so we actually have funding opportunities for all of our trainers. You don't have to receive training from someone to pay it forward to them. If you're moved by anyone who is working with Luke 10 and God just says, go fund them, they're on that website and you can find their pay it forward link and you can give to them. God's put several on my heart this week that are our facilitators to actually go do that too this week. So I love when God says, go fund our facilitators or pay it forward, and I get to go and kind of select which ones. It's just a joy for me to be able to do that. So anyway, some people might really enjoy funding individuals instead of an organization. And so I just want to throw that out there that is a possibility. Checking in. Thank you. I'm checking in as excited. I've really enjoyed this week. It has been adrenaline pumping, I have to say. So yes, that quieting has been an important skill to practice. And I'm thankful that I've had the downtime to do that, and that I will have downtime to do that this weekend too. So a little tired because it's close to the end of this week, and thankful and just really glad to be with you. So I think those are my, I'll share this too. I'm checking in as, oh my gosh, relieved and thankful because as you might remember, we were in the R&D circle this morning and I was presenting to John and Kent the first 2 chapters of the book that I worked on when I was away. And you just never know how that's going to go. So it went really well, I think. And I think they're pleased with the direction. And so I think they're ready to engage with it and add their points and things. But it was, at least chapter 1 was well received. So
good. So good.
Thank you. Yes, that's not always the case.
That's great.
So it was beautiful. I had a really wonderful time with them. So feeling deeply satisfied. Yeah. Okay. Well, today we have some questions to talk through, and I also just got a whole host of questions from John White. Thank you, John.
Oh, fun.
So let me see. Goodness gracious. Some of them overlap with some of the ones I was thinking of, so that's great. All right, so we might jump into some of our just explaining what training is for a little bit, and then we'll hit these questions. How does that sound?
I'm ready.
Okay. So the first thing that we probably should talk about is what is a Luke 10 trainer? What do we do? What's our goal in Luke 10? And just how does this even work and what does this mean? So I would just thought you and I would just have a conversation about some of that stuff. So if you had to say in your words, what's a Luke 10 trainer?
Yeah.
what would you say?
Yeah, well, we are in a special place with a special set of skills, cue Liam Neeson, where we are really equipping spiritual moms and dads to learn how to facilitate to equip other spiritual moms and dads. But we do so with bit of a precisional tactician, developing these skills in the community of practice in ways that reflect our DNA so they can go transferably, simply, and reproducibly to the second, third, fourth, and fifth generation. And I think that's a piece of the kingdom that is often missed in churches and businesses, because we're often, maybe we'll have one mentor, but we're creating something that is a baton that we can hand to the next generation to go on and on and on. And I haven't seen that in many places.
Wow. So you haven't seen that in many places. That makes me, I'm already going on to what's the difference between what we do versus maybe what we have done before, or what we see in most church environments. But I'm wondering if we should continue to hash out what a Luke 10 trainer is and what we do first. Maybe let's hang back there and just camp out on this for just a minute. So, if you had to name some of the skills that you're talking about that we train people in, how would you name those skills? What would you say they are?
I like the word heart.
At any moment, you can say, "Well, why don't you answer that one, Tony?"
Yeah,
I don't want you to be on the spot the whole time. But.
I can play tennis / pickleball anytime. I like the word heart-minded. And I really believe that we're training others to facilitate in such a way that the heart and mind of Christ, if we're going to be the people after God's own heart, and teach and train people how to, I think we all have the mind of Christ, but we all don't know how to access the mind of Christ. So I think in our meetings, just picture the heart and the mind of the Lord at the very center. So instead of the sage on the stage, instead of giving a lecture, instead of telling, instead of teaching, instead of a sermon, whatever we may have been used to, and all those things have a place. What if we can listen to the heartbeat of heaven for the group at that moment, skillfully, to hear what the Spirit is saying to the church, like it says in Revelation, and have our attention affixed on Him in ways that could be mystical, but also are very grounded and practical in the mundane.
So wait, because it sounds like you're not saying we're training people to facilitate a program.
Yeah, I think
that's weird. What exactly are you talking about here? Because when people think training facilitators, it's like, well, there must be some program you're facilitating, right? But the way you're approaching it almost sounds like we're training in something other than how to facilitate a program. So tell me about this.
Yeah, what would it look like if we moved from the sanctuary-driven model to the presence-driven model? And so, because we're not in a building, we're finding Father, Son, and Spirit inside of our hearts. But so we don't get lost in feelings and fuzzy talk, we actually have rounds that Luke 10's created that are very, very successful ways to set up the actual call for success. And so we ground ourselves very practically in these rhythms of attention. And as we lean on them like scaffolding, we'll go ahead and just go around these different things. But the people's hearts are what's the thing to be nurtured at the moment. So more than the program would be presence, and to be
Wow.
present, the skill sets that you're asking are attunement, gentle curiosity,
Mhm,
and there's a
mhm.
whole.
Good. So what it sounds like is instead of training people to facilitate a certain program, we use Church 101 course, intro calls, leader teams, like we use these structured things that we have really just as a basis to train in skills, to train the skills that are necessary to actually facilitate anything in a way that's joy filled and Jesus led, right?
Yes.
So whether I'm around the dinner table,
Yeah.
if I've been trained with Luke 10, I feel confident that I know how to let Jesus be in the center and help everyone connect to Him and help everyone listen, and then let the multifaceted wisdom of God emerge, even at my dinner table.
Yeah.
Or if I'm hosting 50 people
Yeah.
in some type of larger Christian gathering, I also know how to facilitate something like that in a way that the multifaceted wisdom of God emerges because of the skills that I've learned doing a facilitator training. So yes, I think you pointed that out so beautifully, that they facilitate certain things with us so that we can watch them and then debrief with them what they've done, because that's really all we do is we model. They debrief what they've seen.
Right.
They do it. We debrief them at that point because we get to see what they do, and we get to shore up their skill set, basically to call out and educe the things they do really well,
Yes.
which you do a brilliant job of, and then shore up their skill set and the pieces that might be missing so that they show up consistently and effectively as joy filled and Jesus led.
Well said. That's what we do. Yeah.
And you did, that was so beautiful the way you painted the picture of putting Jesus in the middle. That's really, and presencing Him
Yeah.
and each other. And
Yeah.
that is not necessarily easy to train in. And I don't know any other places that actually in a church setting train people to be together in this way. Not that it's not happening. I've just never experienced it. Great. Okay. So that's really the aims of Luke 10 trainers, right? Is to impart these skills and values and practices to people who are wanting to implement these consistently and effectively in their own environments, right?
Yes.
So what are some of the things then, if you're considered a Luke 10 trainer, what are some of the things that you do and that you maybe have the privilege of doing, or the domain that you can, the freedoms, I guess. What are some of the freedoms, some of the privileges that you have as a Luke 10 trainer?
Well, because we're holding all of this gold, frankincense, and myrrh, there's so much gold. Even just in Church 101, people think it's so simple. It's amazing. Every time I go through it, I come to tears. But we can take these rhythms, these leader lessons, these ways to have interactive appreciation wherever they are. And we as trainers have the authority, because we from Luke 10, because we have the validation, the thumbprint. We can go ahead and experiment with a local church and say, hey, can we have a relational revolution workshop or a maturity skills workshop? We could bring it there. We could bring it to the workplace. There's no end to creating with the Lord, from using even these sorts of things that we've been learning on a leader team, but expanding it to other settings. So those are some of the things that we can do to make Luke 10 local.
That's amazing. And I mean, obviously, any of our facilitators can go and introduce our rhythms of practice and things to churches, but not necessarily in our name. They can do it in, as facilitators of Luke 10, because they are backed on our website. But our trainers have a specific privilege of being able to use Luke 10's name because of the amount of training you've had. We know our DNA is represented accurately and beautifully. So if you come upon a Luke 10 trainer, it's no small thing to behold. They have done hundreds of hours of training, honestly, with Luke 10. And I personally have debriefed them for hundreds of hours. Every one of them, even though they're in their trainers still, I still debrief them. And we're all still growing together, and I get debriefed. In fact, I have Jay has debriefed me, and it's one of our replay videos that we'd love to show at some point for people to see how even I get debriefed from facilitating in our organization. And it's so helpful and so beautiful, that process. So I might even play that as a replay today at some point if people want to see that. It was so beautifully done. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
So see the best of our debriefing in action. Okay, so that's a kind of who we are, what we do. We've kind of talked about how it's different than other places we've trained for or trained with. Do you want to say anything else about that? About how is training with Luke 10 different than other organizations you've trained with?
It really is joy fueled. And I know we use the word a lot. And the reason why I think it's joy fueled is feedback is the breakfast of champions, some have said. And so by getting feedback on our level of facilitating and training gives me, for instance, an opportunity to say, wow, I could improve here. I did that well. This is where my lane is. I need to stay here. Or next time I'm going to ask that question. So that level of feedback given to me is something that I haven't had in many other training organizations at all. And number two would be the way that it's communicated is so gracious, compassionate, filled with gentle curiosity, kindness, appreciation. And there is, whether I'm receiving a debrief or giving a debrief, there is and we may get there, but we begin with really educing how that facilitator shown the radiance of the unique traits that Jesus is in them, and starting from that place and being tethered to there. The feedback sessions, debrief sessions are probably my favorite thing within Luke 10. And so that right there, that's the goal that I haven't experienced elsewhere. It's filled with delight, and it's something that everyone should experience because we can use it at home too, even at the table.
Oh, yes, everywhere. So I will not take credit for this debrief process that we have because I have been trained with Godly Play. And for anyone who knows Godly Play, it is a way of being with children that really is joy-filled and Jesus-led. And so I've had the privilege 20 years ago, I think now, of coming across Godly Play and being in that for 20 years, being trained as a trainer, international trainer, trained as a U.S. trainer. I was able to launch Godly Play in several Latin American countries, and it's just been an amazing ride for me. And that organization has grown me as a trainer like no other place I've ever encountered. And I really love walking among them. So it's necessary for me to give them a shout out because I know I get a lot of recognition for Luke 10's debriefing process. And I really just took it from them and adapted it to this environment and use it everywhere. So I'm really indebted to my College of Trainers with Godly Play, and their DNA is so similar to ours in so many ways. So anyway, just a shout out to Godly Play. And if anyone is working with children, I highly recommend Godly Play. And I do still train with them, which we'll get to at some point when we talk about how we fund ourselves as trainers. Many ways. Anyway. Okay, good. So how are we different than other places? I think that, the debrief process. Yeah, really good. And whole brained, right? The idea of discovery learning, of whole brained learning, where we actually watch, we debrief, we reflect on what we notice, then we do it ourselves, and then someone watches that and then debriefs us as well on that, and then we get to try it again. And it's just really a beautiful way to learn. And that usually it's really funny because when I was in the church, when I was in college in church ministry, I heard that was the way to train people. Like I read it in books and everyone said, oh yeah, that's the best way to train people, but no one did it. And I often wondered, why don't people do it this way? And it really was because of lack of resources and time. Churches had too much going on, too many programs, not enough leaders. And so we just didn't have time to train you. We had to just throw you right in there. And no one observed what you were doing or debriefed you because we didn't have time for that. Like there was too much of a shortage of leaders to go around and mentors to go around. And so I think when we started Luke 10, I said, I want to slow it all down and really train people well, even if it means people are on a wait list, even if it means people have to wait, and we can't get to everyone because it's that important, I think, to really pass on our DNA. We believe our facilitators are signal repeaters out there in the world, right? Repeating our DNA out in the world, and we want to make sure that they've got that DNA well embedded. So I think that really seems like hopefully it encompasses kind of what we train. How do we? So I do want to just say, how does someone become a trainer? And I do want to state that it is by invitation only. So what happens is when people are in facilitator training, our trainers are watching for specific traits that they might see in the person they're training. And then they start to recommend to our trainer circle, hey, I really think Jay could be a great trainer one day. That he's just got the observation skills. He's articulate. He's getting our DNA really quickly. So those are some of the things we're watching for. And he loves to train. It's in his design. Maybe you've done design. So we can tell those things, and they start to recommend that to the trainer circle. And then the trainer circle makes recommendations to the mission circle and says, we highly recommend we invite this person as a trainer. And then the mission circle consents to that. And this is probably after watching many videos of this person facilitating. And then even the mission circle will ask to watch those videos as well and weigh in on how they perceive that person's training, concerns they might have in training that person. And then we invite that person into training once consent is given. And then we begin the process, which can be a very long process. How long? You went the fastest, I think, of anyone. And how long did it take you to train all the way to become a leader team facilitator trainer?
That's a good question. Let's see. Started in I think I just jumped on being on a leader team and then going right into building a leader team. So maybe 6 months to a year, perhaps.
Yeah, 6 months to a year to where you were training leader team facilitators, or where you were in training as a trainer?
Facilitating a leader team. So then I would add another 6 months to a year. So maybe a year and a quarter of maybe training to be a trainer.
Yeah, because I think you started maybe a little over a year ago now, right?
Yes, yeah.
Maybe like last February or something. So you've been training now for about a year and a half almost, and you're now at a place where you are training at all levels. And I think you're one of the only ones so far training at all levels. Yeah. Because we have intro call training, we have Church 101 training, and then we have the leader team training. So, right. And I still watch your debriefs. You still connect with me and we talk about those. And even as the circle continues to form, I think we will have each other, in the future as kind of whenever we need to be debriefed, or we have someone that we're working with that might be a little more difficult than others. What would you say, if you had to say, what would you say is the most kind of the hardest thing that this might be weird, but what seems to be the hardest part of training people? I don't know. I mean, that could go two ways. It could be what's hardest for you in training people, but it could also be, and this is what I'm thinking more, when people are training, what seems to be most difficult for them to grasp in our training experience?
Yes. I think the attribute of humility is really key in being a trainer. For one, it really is, because there are other set of eyes on other.
This is the hardest part for you. Is that what you're saying?
No. So that being said, so I can answer what's hard for me. Okay. So that could be hard for certain individuals, right? Yeah. I crave the feedback and I implement things that I get, pretty regularly, because I don't know what I don't even know. So I think I have a track record for that. But I would say that a real stuck point might be for folks would be for training. I don't know if I want to answer it with the concept or in the method. I would say this: it's getting it's a new way, it's a new paradigm of thinking, and it's coming out of telling and coming into more is caught than taught. So how do I get out of telling people to do things, or coaching people, or pastoring people, or whatever hat I used to wear, and how do I put on a facilitator hat?
Wow.
So getting
Wow.
people to not just know about it, but actually to practice it, hear feedback. Well, let's try that again. Let's try that again. Let's do another church one-on-one. So I think that's the biggest shift that is a challenge for most people.
Beautifully said. I just shared, I started a podcast series not long ago on this very topic. So I'm like, and what you just shared, I share many times over as probably the key paradigm shift. There were two key paradigm shifts that happened in me to take me into a more facilitator trainer role in my life. And one of them was not seeing people as it's or things to do something to,
Right.
right? But actually seeing people as full. John uses a bucket, an empty bucket versus an acorn, right? And I like that phrase too, or the way he uses that image. It's not, people aren't empty buckets that I fill. They're more like acorns that need to be drawn out.
Yeah.
And so that was huge, because when my goal was to teach, to convince, to evangelize, to disciple, even if that were my goal in relating to this person, then they're really kind of an it, and I'm still the focus, because what I'm doing something to them. Versus presencing, like you said, an idea that this person has the whole image of God, or not the whole image of God, but they have the image of God inside of them in a unique way to them. And what if I just got to be so present with them that I got to see it come out, and I got to name it. And I got to say, oh, Jay, this is what I see Jesus when you're like this. Oh my goodness, the way you comfort others, it seems like the heart of God. The way you do this seems like the heart of God to me, and you uniquely do it. It doesn't look like you're trying. It just comes from you, right? So when we get to educe or draw out the character of God from people, and name it for them, it's just powerful. And that's so different than kind of, I do it like this too. It's not this, but this. Right?
Yes.
We're drawing it out of people. And that was a huge, huge paradigm shift. Right. And so that seems to be one of the most difficult things, is people actually making that paradigm shift.
Yeah. Because it's so intractable, or training or Western church culture is not that. So it's fun to play with that, and watch a video. So we're watching a video of what had happened, and so we can look at the tape like a sports analogy, Tom Brady or Steph Curry would, and go back and say, what could we have done? Or there's another possibility. Have you thought of this? Let's listen to Jesus on where you may have been stuck or bumped out, or the group was stuck or bumped out, and we can improve that experience, because you're already a Jesus-led amazing facilitator. But what if we can get you from an A to an A plus with some of this feedback, if that'd be okay with you? And so that's how we grow up into facilitating more skillfully.
Wow, that's huge. Any other things that you go, yeah, this is kind of hard for people too? Anything else that you see consistently that is a big shift for people?
Following instructions.
I'm sorry, I'm dying laughing.
Yeah,
because when I was in 7th grade, I'm sure you had this happen too. When I was in 7th grade, my teacher passed out a quiz to every single person in the room, right? And the very first direction was, read the whole page before you start, right?
Right.
No one did, and everyone just started doing it because it was timed. And then, of course, you get to the bottom, and the very last thing was, don't do any of these questions, flip your page over and put your pencil down.
Yes.
And of course, only one person in the entire room actually did that, and everyone else is spending the entire time doing this thing. And the whole point of that was, y'all have to learn to follow directions, right? So 7th grade, there I was. And yet here we are in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and some of us in our 70s. We're still really struggling with following directions. Tell me about this. Why is this hard for us? What's going on there? And give me an example of what are you talking about?
So the outlines that we have for facilitator training are rock solid. They're proven to work for thousands of people around the world. And within that structure, we have room for flow, spontaneity. However, the ones that have written the curriculum have really thought it through in a brain science kind of way, in a heart-minded way, so that they're presented at the right time. And so
Mhm.
some people feel like it's rote. I don't want to read a script. It's salesy. So I get that. So we talk about how to do that in your own voice in a natural kind of way. But anytime I've trained someone and they've deviated from the script, and it's a simple script, but the call does not
Wow.
it does not come out that the way that we really want the Holy Spirit to induce everything out of people, and it sometimes derails. And
Wow.
so just simply sticking to it's very, very simple. Just looking at it, working with it, making it your own, um, with the power of a brilliant question really brings out everything we're saying from the people. But when people get nervous and put on the old hat, it's a different experience.
Yeah, thank you. Well said. Well said. And I think that actually this very issue that you're talking about is probably what prompted me to do the podcast that I'm doing right now around the four S's of a good facilitator. And one of those is be safe, right? Be safe. And it has to do with how we respond to heavy emotions when people share heavy emotions. And it's simple. It's really not brain science. You don't have to be a coach, you don't have to be a therapist. Like, it really is pretty simple. But people who come from a different paradigm, they just have a hard
Mhm.
time implementing this, because they've never seen it done. They've never experienced this level of safety or this level of multifaceted wisdom of God emerging out of a community, because you've allowed Jesus to move in a group.
Yeah.
So I find that's probably one of the things too that a lot of people struggle in their first few times facilitating. But once they've experienced it and once they do it, they're like, paradigm is shifted forever,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that was amazing. So we
Yeah.
just want to get people to that wow, this is amazing moment, so that they can experience that in any environment, right? Anywhere,
Yeah.
anytime. Beautiful. Anything else? Any other thoughts on what's difficult for people?
I think it's difficult, because we have our own way of following Jesus for a lot of times in our life and ministry, and this is another way. It's another invitation, and sometimes when a lot of people want to follow Jesus the way they've been doing it, they've been only looking at the tower of one window their whole lives. We're just asking people to look another window, another perspective, because these rounds that are set there we prayed about and wrote down. So it isn't not paying attention to the flow of the Spirit. It's just set up in a joyful order. And so it's almost like first base, second base, third base, and the Holy Spirit can really hit it out of the park when we're surrendered to the structured flow that He gives us. And so cooperating with um, the river banks that are set, we can flow in the river of God's exceeding joy. So that's all I would say is
Beautifully said. And I do want to say, right, that we tell people all the time, we love experimentation. Luke 10 is all about experimenting, trying new things, and giving us feedback, which is how these rounds and the things that people see when they train with us, it's how they even came into being, through hundreds of hours of experimenting with live teams, right, of all ages, of all countries, even represented. Not all countries, 39 countries. And we have adapted them every single time that we've gotten feedback over the last 8 years, which has been a lot of feedback. So, like you said, they're proven through what we call conation, which
yeah,
is we launch out and experiment with it, and then we adapt it when we get feedback, and adapt it. And so we're all for experimentation. But when someone is in our training, we ask that they just do it our way while they're training. We don't say you always have to do it this way, or this is the only God inspired way to do it. Not in any shape, form, or fashion. But while they're training with us, we just ask that they trust the process that we've gone through, that God has had us on, with these rounds, with these ways of responding to people, and this way of kind of listening and perceiving the presence of God in community until they're done with their training. And then when they're done and they go into their own local environment, they can experiment away and give us feedback on how their experiments are working and what experiments are working. So, and that's also how we keep improving our stuff, is because people are out there experimenting, giving us feedback even on what they're doing. So I do want to say that, yeah, we do have room for experimentation, just not while you're training. Do it our way. Just
And
one.
it is proven to be true, because those individuals that have left Church 101 and got really excited and wanted to bring it local and make it organic, they've tried that many a time. And without the right feedback and training, it's not always been successful. And then people listen to Jesus, oh, maybe I should get more training. And then they get the training, and the testimonials that we have of people doing it that way would not do it any other way. So it's a proven process.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I do want to talk briefly about how we fund ourselves as trainers. And I include myself because for about 4 years, I was a trainer with Luke 10, and I wasn't necessarily on staff. And I definitely wasn't full time on staff at all. So, maybe I was part-time staff, but I still had to fund the rest of myself through training. So how do we fund ourselves as trainers? You want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. As I came on board, I entered into the pay it forward model, where we encourage the person that I'm training, or someone on the leader team, just to listen to Jesus and pay it forward, and we'll suggest a donation that would meet what we deem valuable. And so that is where we're at. It's donation basis.
Great. And I would say another way I funded myself during that, or just funded myself as a trainer, is I'm an independent contractor. So I train for other organizations as well. So thankfully, because of the training I've got with Luke 10 and the experience I have and the coaching that is usually offered for free for me, and for you, whatever coaching you want and you need personally, John, Kent, and myself are always available, and John and Kent are always available for me too, to coach me. And so the fact that they have freely given to me in amazing ways has equipped me to actually go really knock it out of the park in any training environment I walk into. I've walked into schools and trained. My husband has walked into businesses and trained. Like, we have a skill set that really we could train anyone anywhere, and it'd be such high quality. And when we train in a secular environment, we get a lot of money. Like, they pay for this level of training in amazing ways. And so for years, my husband and I would do coaching, training, and things like that for other organizations to help fund our habit of Luke 10ing.
Oh, that's good.
And in some ways, that is a tension that I think I felt a lot, right? Because I really wanted to train full time with Luke 10 and couldn't. And at the same time, I felt like God was really using me in godly play, for sure. Really, I still feel that tension even today, because I love godly play and I want to keep training, but I know it taxes me to do Luke 10 and godly play. And so, I'm going to have to choose at some point, probably, but I don't want to. I want to do all of it. Not to mention, now locally, there might be a project here among musicians to help build in Belmont, right? I'm like, oh, I want to do that too. Anyway, but any thoughts about that? I know you have your own coaching as well that you do on the side. What are some of the things that you do or that you have done in the past that also help fund you when you're not getting pay it forward?
Yes. Well, I stepped out of any kind of secular kind of work to jump into the Luke 10 experiment full time. And so I began doing that by building some leader teams from the ground up, and then entering into facilitating and into training. And so wondering if that is going to work, if that is a viable scenario for me and my family. And I can give answers to that. I'm going to have, and I kind of did less coaching. I did a lot of coaching for men. I'm finding that the Jesus-led people are not paying it forward like I would outside of the pay it forward model. And so I'm at a space now, the last few months, where I want to stay in the space. I'm seeing breakthrough. People are receiving moments of encounter with the Lord that they haven't received in years and thousands of dollars of counseling, and then sustainable rhythms to keep them there. Except I'm not being compensated for that at present, and that being what it is, I am at a space where I'm going to have to enter into some coaching out there, and that may happen like next month.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, we're going to get here in just a minute on, from the other side of things, the people
Yeah.
who are in a pay it forward, position where they're being asked to pay it forward. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But I do want to say, it's a huge experiment. And you have been really one of the spearhead leaders in this experiment. Will this work? And, the mission circle and the finance circle, are really trying to be in it with you. And will this model work during the transition of culture, right? And we talked about that in the finance circle meeting yesterday, that the culture's not there yet. They're not. People are still thinking, why would I want to pay it forward? You should give it for free, because freely you have received, freely you give, or I don't have the money to give. And so, and we'll talk about those scenarios. And even in the biblical model, there were women apparently who funded the apostles so that they could give freely, right? But there was still funding happening. God was still moving in someone's heart to fund it. They didn't just do it without anything. Yes, there were tent makers, and I think that's what you're talking. We both have been tent making and tent makers and things like that. And we're not opposed to those ideas. And we feel like God is just leading us all in what he wants this to look like, and how to best join him in seeing this funded, because it does need to be funded. He wants it to be funded, but how is the biggest question. And this is the experiment of Luke 10 at this point.
Yeah.
Let's talk for just a minute about people who are blocked in training because they don't think they cannot pay it forward at all. Like, they really cannot. And what would we say to a person? They're everywhere. We have lots of people with us who are like that. What have we said to them? What do we say to them?
Well, we love to ask really good questions with them about what's going on and how do you feel about this, and what's the Lord want you to know about it. But we also want to give people permission to receive, to absolutely receive. There's seasons to learn how to receive in our maturity skills. And if there's an opportunity for you to maybe pay it forward creatively, maybe it's through web design or through this, or maybe there's an opportunity where you could pray it forward with me. And while we're training, you can go ahead and help other workers be sent to the harvest to help fund this scenario. So we've made it really gracious invitations to work with people while doing that.
Thank you. And I don't think that can be said enough. I think that there's a lot of trauma around money. And when people are presented with these ideas, lots of pain gets triggered, and lots of assumptions are made, and lots of distrust happens, and then even anger, right? Like, I can't believe you're asking me for money. I can't believe you're telling me how much it's worth, because then that makes me feel bad if I can't pay it, right? They'd rather not know what the value is so they don't have to feel bad, right? So a lot of emotion gets stirred up, and we really feel like God is calling us to step into a space with people that invites healing around these issues. That's our goal. We want healing around these issues. So like you said, if I weren't triggered and I didn't feel ashamed, if I didn't have money to pay it forward to you, and yet you're telling me, yeah, I can, because while you might not be able to today, another trainer can provide that fully funded right now. We have trainers who don't need pay it forward right now, so they really can offer it without, and so for someone to be able to say, really, I can just receive this. Okay. thank you for one, and let me pray it forward. Like you said, I want to join you and pray and beg God to send a funder to you so that I can continue receiving this, so that He provides for you and your needs. And it is hard to receive. It is so hard, especially people who've been in ministry their whole life giving. They have been taught that they're only valuable if they're giving. That if they have to receive, they have no value whatsoever. And so it is uncomfortable. This is an uncomfortable conversation. And we don't shy away from it because we believe God wants to heal us. He wants to heal His body in the area of giving and receiving. So I think that can't be said enough. And yeah, your value isn't, no one's value is based on whether they can pay it forward or not. If I had to pay it forward to John White for all the counseling he's given me and coaching, I wouldn't be able to feed myself because he didn't have it all.
Yes.
So I say thank you, to people when I'm receiving from them, and I do pray God provides for them. I really do.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We have about 9 minutes left. Let me check and see if there's some more questions that John had. Oh man, I don't like some of these questions. He's asking just about, dreaming. He knows I don't like to do this. Dreaming for what this could look like in 5 years. And that's not the way I'm wired. Maybe you can dream about 5 years from now, Jay. I'm not wired that way. I'm wired to sense, to observe an organization and sense what it needs right now and kind of shift to the needs of the organization. As opposed to like thinking 5 years out and making a goal and then trying to force the organization there. Not that John's suggesting that at all. He's a visionary, so he lives in the future. But my personality doesn't work that way. I really don't envision 5 years out. I radically pay attention to right now and what do we need tomorrow to grow? What's the next growth point for tomorrow? And then I just move into action so that the organism has what it needs and we have what we need to grow. So however you work, maybe it's what do you see on the horizon that is the growth opportunity for us right now? Right. Maybe it's 5 years from now, you have an image and a vision, because I know you tend to have visions as well. But how do you approach that type of question, and what would you say?
Well, let's help each other with this dream experiment. Toni, can you tell me the goals that we have for fluency in training? So certain things we want every trainer to be fluent. If you could awesome. remind us of this.
Okay, yeah. So thank you. Maybe I do envision and dream. I just do it differently. It looks like I lost that whole document that I had open, so I'm going to have to wing this. You'll have to help me because it just shut down. Yeah, I do. I have a vision for our trainers, however many there are. I think we need as many trainers as necessary to get the job done. So I'm not going, oh, we constantly need more trainers, No, I go, right now, we don't have a lot of people training. So we really don't we need as many trainers as we need. And they take a long time to train. And we have a few in the lineup to start training with us. So that's super exciting. But my passion and desire for our trainers is that they're fluent in about 5 languages. I think I have on there. One of those languages is relational skills, obviously, that we know the 19 relational brain skills, that we know how to intervene when the brain is stuck, that we can see what skills are missing in someone in 10 minutes almost of their facilitating. Literally, we can say they don't know how to quiet. They don't understand what joy is. They don't know how to be with people in presence, in joy. And we can go through those 19 relational brain skills and just be able to assess that almost. So relational skills, maturity. I think we should all speak the language of maturity. And again, we don't have to master all 5 languages, but just some fluency in it so that we know when to refer people out in these areas, right? So if I have some fluency in all these areas, if I'm training someone, I will know, I think this person needs to do our maturity course right now, or I think maybe we could do a coaching session on maturity and I could work with them, send them the leader lesson on maturity, whatever. So maturity and the stages of maturity. Another one is Emmanuel approach to prayer. We do a lot of Emmanuel approach to healing with people that we're training. We offer that type of, even into healing traumatic memories, right? And many of us have that skill, and I think all of us should be able to at least identify when that's necessary.
Yeah.
And if we can't offer it, we can refer, right? Hey, I think a manual approach would be great right now for this issue. I think maybe you should schedule with Jay or Toni or whoever, right? So to be able to, that's the fluency I'm talking about for all of our trainers. Another one would be, do you have them right there? What's the one I'm missing a few?
Relational skills, maturity, a manual approach, your unique design.
All right, your unique design. Tell us about that in a minute, Jay.
Sure. We want every facilitator to go through the Your Unique Design course so that they could find out how they show up uniquely and brilliantly, going through the stories of their past to find out where they're the most connected, alive, and showing up as God made them to be, and actually getting funded for that. So it's a great space.
Yeah, and we'd love our trainers. They need the fluency, right? So they know when this person needs that, and they can recommend that. And then divine governance, that we have enough handle on divine governance that we can say, you know what, I think this person I'm training right now, they're leading an organization, and man, they need divine governance. They are really struggling in that area, and I can refer them to Toni or Jay or anyone in the organization, Kent Smith, and they can get a little, or even one of our future courses, hopefully by next year, on divine governance that they can do. So the idea is that we have courses in those areas, or several of those areas that we can offer as well, so that our people are getting those things even before they become trainers. And your unique design is the example of that this year, that we were able to launch that and start training our facilitators in that, so that if they do become trainers, they already have the fluency in that. So we're super excited about where that's going in our future. I think it's just, it takes time to build a plane in flight.
And Toni, if you could see that college of trainers,
you're so awesome. Stop, you're gonna make me cry.
Relational design, just picture it, because you wrote it down. Maturity stages, the manual approach, your unique designs, everyone in their lane, and divine governance. How would that change the way that you see Luke 10 globally even now?
Wow. We will be, I think, a force to be reckoned with in the world. I think it will be a movement that will be unstoppable, because the skill level of the leaders walking among us will be able to, to really nurture an awakening that I think is coming. Awakening, we think, is coming, and we want people trained who can actually parent and nurture new people coming to Christ who don't have any of these skills, and they're going to need reparenting, and they're going to need healing, and they're going to need all of the maturity skills that they're lacking, because our society is so disintegrated. So I think that future ministers of the faith, everyone, not clergy, but all of us, as God's bride, are going to need these skills, and it would be amazing to have people training people in them.
And I'll ask you one follow-up question, then I know we probably have to go. If you could see this reckoning happen, this accelerated force going forth with not only globally, but with the healing and the maturity of Pay It Forward, not just the healing, but Pay It Forward, and you could see that unleashed, how would that make you feel?
Like dancing in the rain. I would be done. Like, I would be so satisfied Jesus could take me home. Like, I would have done everything.
Well,
everything that has been asked of me on this planet, and I would be ready to see my Father face to face.
Well, let's do it.
Thank you. That was beautifully modeled, how we deduce each other's heart motivations and visions. Thank you so much for that. That was a very sweet surprise today.
Thank you.
Man. Love you so much. Thanks for all things training, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.